There is a titanium armored predator designed to thrive in the chaos of war, and it's built entirely around a cannon so powerful it can vaporize columns of tanks. This is the engineering behind one of the deadliest aircraft. Think of the A-10 Thunderbolt like a massive 7-barrel Gatling gun that happened to be given wings. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon is the heart of the machine, stretching nearly 20 feet long and weighing almost 2 tons. To put that in perspective, if you pulled the gun out, the aircraft would tip over onto its tail. Engineering this beast required solving a massive physics problem: the recoil. When the pilot pulls the trigger, the gun generates 5 tons of rearward force, more than the combined thrust of both engines. To stop the plane from spinning out or stalling, engineers mounted the firing barrel exactly along the aircraft's centerline. The ammunition is just as terrifying. It spits out 30mm shells, each the size of a milk bottle, made of depleted uranium. These rounds don't just hit targets, they use sheer kinetic energy to punch through thick tank plating like it's wet cardboard. Because the gun generates so much heat, the barrels are spun by a dual hydraulic system, allowing it to fire 70 rounds per second without melting the internal components. The vibration is so intense, it can rattle the pilot's teeth. Yet the airframe holds steady, turning a flight of tanks into a graveyard of twisted metal in a single pass. But the power of this weapon is useless if the pilot can't survive long enough to use it. On March 4, 2002, during Operation Anaconda, a squad of Rangers was pressed into the frozen dirt of Takur Ghar, pinned by heavy machine gun fire from Al-Qaeda militants on the ridges above. To understand how the A-10 earned its reputation, we have to look at this practical battlefield instance where engineering met raw combat in the mountains of Afghanistan. A low, guttural hum echoed through the valley. Suddenly, the sky seemed to rip apart. It was the BRRRRT, the unmistakable sound of the GAU-8 Avenger clearing its throat. There was a strange, terrifying delay because the rounds hit the target before the sound even reached the ears of the survivors. For the enemy on the ridge, the world became a chaotic blur of exploding rock and shredded metal as the 30mm rounds saturated the position. For the soldiers on the ground, it was the voice of an angel with a heavy metal attitude. The enemy stopped firing to dive for cover, while the Rangers finally found the breathing room to regroup and move. The Warthog proved that in the chaos of a danger-close fight, this aircraft was the only friend that mattered. While the ground forces looked up in awe, the pilot was relying on a heavy metal shield to survive the return fire. The A-10 is built to fly into the teeth of the most dangerous anti-aircraft environments on the planet. To keep the pilot from being shredded by ground fire, engineers wrapped the entire cockpit in a 1,200-pound shell of high-strength titanium, famously known as the bathtub. This isn't just a thick floor. It's a massive armored bucket ranging from ½ inch to 1.5 inches in thickness. It is specifically designed to deflect direct hits from 23mm armor-piercing shells that would vaporize a standard fighter jet. Inside, the pilot is surrounded by a multi-layered nylon spall shield, which catches any metal fragments if a round manages to deform the outer hull. Even the canopy isn't just glass. It's a bullet-resistant stack of polycarbonate and acrylic designed to withstand small arms fire and bird strikes at high speeds. When the world outside is exploding and tracers are stitching lines across the sky, the pilot is sitting in the most secure seat in the military. This engineering allows the Warthog to stay in the fight long after other planes would have been forced to eject, making it a flying fortress that refuses to quit. This massive armor plating is only useful if the plane can still stay in the air after taking a beating.
The TF-34 engines on the A-10 look like they were slapped onto the back as an afterthought, but their placement is a masterclass in survival engineering. By mounting the engines high and far back on the fuselage, engineers protected them from the primary threat of heat-seeking missiles. The twin tails actually act as a physical shield, masking the infrared signature of the engine exhaust from ground-based sensors. Unlike sleek supersonic jets that need pristine runways, the A-10 is a dirt track specialist. The high-bypass turbofans provide massive, low-end torque, allowing the plane to lift heavy payloads off short, rugged strips of gravel or dirt right near the front line. This means the Warthog can stay in the mud with the ground troops it supports. Apart from the cannon, A-10s carry a massive toolbox of destruction across 11 underwing hardpoints. In a danger-close fight, guessing is not an option. This is where the AGM-65 Maverick missiles and Paveways laser-guided bombs come into play. Using advanced targeting pods like the Sniper or Lightning, the pilot can zoom in through thick smoke and dust to identify a single enemy technical truck hidden among civilian or friendly vehicles. These systems turn the Warthog into a scalpel in the middle of a sledgehammer fight. The pilot can designate a target with a laser, and the munitions will track that beam with surgical precision. This level of clarity ensures that even in the chaotic, low-visibility environment of a frantic firefight, the A-10 delivers maximum lethality to the enemy while providing a literal shield of safety for the ground crew below. Every inch of the aircraft is engineered for austere conditions, meaning it's built to be fixed by a mechanic with a wrench in a sandy hangar, not just engineers in a high-tech lab. One of the most brilliant features is the interchangeability of its parts. The left and right engines are identical, as are the two vertical stabilizers and many of the landing gear components. Let's say a Warthog limps back to a forward operating base with a shredded engine while the base is under high alert. Because the design is so modular and accessible, they can have that jet refueled, rearmed, and back in the air for a second sortie in record time. It is a dream for the grunts on the maintenance line, ensuring the A-10 spends more time over the battlefield than in the shop. This rugged simplicity is the reason why, after decades of service, no other aircraft has been able to take its place. For decades, the Pentagon has tried to mothball the A-10 in favor of faster, stealthier jets, but the Warthog refuses to die. Its longevity isn't about speed. It's about the visceral bond between the pilot and the infantryman in the mud. While high-altitude fighters stay detached, the A-10 pilot is down in the smoke, circling close enough to see the tracers. In modern conflicts, this aircraft remains the ultimate insurance policy. Soldiers know that when a Warthog is overhead, their odds of survival skyrocket. It is a legendary piece of engineering that proves grit and redundancy beat sleek aesthetics every time. The A-10 wasn't built to look good. It was built to bring everyone home.